So I'm out shoveling snow and
Seriously? You shoveled snow this morning?
no, we had snow last weekend, but it was Hollywood snow, California snow. So it was just enough of a dusting so all the tourists could take pictures with red tiled roofs, palm trees, and majestic snow-capped mountains in the background. It was epic.
It was lovely. I was out there. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was every 10 years or so we just pray to the weather gods that the Chamber of Commerce will get some great photographs for their brochures.
That sounds perfect. We have a very good friend who lives is it Truckee?
Yeah, Truckee up at Tahoe, you bet.
Yeah, she sent us videos yesterday.
50 foot of snow or something
Yeah,
silly like
there's
that.
like 8 feet deep,
Yeah.
and she's one of our former students,
Mm.
and she has 4 donkeys that she does both. She does both nature-based and, in this case, donkey-based therapy.
Yeah.
And the work that she had to do to dig through 7 to 8 feet of snow to get
Oh,
to her donkeys to was unbelievable.
oh my God.
And I mean, we've had a heavy duty winter, but we've had, big snowstorms, but not 7 feet. So
That's
um,
a lot of snow. A lot of snow. I've got a water expert coming on my show in a month or so to talk about what California can and should do about harnessing the snow melt so that we can replenish our aquifers.
yeah, that'd be
And
fantastic.
I'm
I'm
looking
looking forward
forward
to
to
that.
that. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. So um, today, you and I were talking, and I love how immediate this show is because you're talking to men all the time through your practice. And you said something that really got my attention. I want to unpack it. You said the thing that you're hearing a lot from men is a failure to launch.
Mm. Yeah, I'm really uh, seeing that a lot, and I'm actually pretty concerned about it. And let me share what I mean by that. I and I mean, just for the audience, I'm still seeing clients probably, you know, 15 to 18 clients per week. Um, Many of those clients are men, probably 70%. Like this afternoon, for instance, I'm meeting with a father and a 20-year-old son, actually 21. Um, and what I'm seeing is, and maybe a better word might be struggling to launch versus failure to launch. And and the transition, what I'm talking about is that transition between being with parents, doing high school, possibly doing college, but then going out into the world on their own and making their own way.
Hmm.
Um, and, uh, I'm working with young men anywhere from 20 to early 30s. And there's still many, in fact, almost all of them that I'm seeing. And I know it's a very selected sample of men. But, talking to other therapists and other people, it's like young men are struggling to figure out what they want to do, pursue that, um, make do something enough where they can make a living, where they can support themselves, and if they do happen to end up having families, where they can um, actually support their partner, wife, and children. And what I'm aware of, and you and I have spoken a lot about our transition into from sort of boyhood to manhood. I left home at 17. Had
Yo
been on my own.
también.
Yeah. And
My
and
when I left, she said, "Well, you're leaving the same way you came here, naked."
yeah.
I
Oh,
went,
your mother
"What?"
said that?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And she said, "Well, you can have all the clothes you can fit on your back."
yeah.
And so I went in and I think I put on 5 pairs of pants, literally. I have vivid memory of this. 3 or 4 pairs of underwear, 5 or 6 t-shirts, 8 or 9 shirts, jacket, hats, shoes, and I think I put some boots around my neck. And I said,
Yeah.
"See you, fuck off."
Yeah. Yeah. That. And mine wasn't quite that. Mine was I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to put up with the BS anymore. Um, I was fortunate I had a Volkswagen Bug that I packed. So
I had
uh,
a 58 Chevy Nomad lowrider, and 57 Chevy would have been awesome. I had a 58 and paid $20 for it. And I met the guy at my 50th high school reunion that sold it to me.
no
He says,
kidding.
"You remember selling?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I only got $20 for it." I says, That's all the money I had." Yeah.
Would have been
So
funny if you
keep
would have
keep
pulled out
going.
another $20 and given him 20 more
Oh
dollars.
God, he almost asked me to do that. He was like, I could see it, him
See
trying to
him waiting.
decide, should I ask him for another $20? I was like, no,
That would
no,
that would have been hilarious.
no. He was a dick then. He's still a dick.
I got it. So
So what comes to mind when I'm hearing this, because I see these stories about the kid living in the basement. There's a great series with Steve Carell called The Patient, that's been
mm,
up this last season because it was up for a bunch of awards, where the son is living downstairs and he's in his mid 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s.
mhm.
He's a serial killer and he's kidnapped Steve Carell as a patient. He's a psychotherapist,
Oh wow.
and he
Okay.
said, "I researched and I think you can help me stop being a serial killer." And he's got him chained to the bed downstairs, and they have sessions. It's a psychological thriller. It's extremely good, but it is that, thinking about that's probably the far extreme, for sure. But a conversation came up recently about how some men grow up without having any difficulty. Great schools, great college, great family, marry the high school sweetheart, they go out and live their life, they got the good job, all the stuff is good, and you and I were talking about this now that I
Hmm.
remember, and they're kind of empty, right? Because there's
Right.
generational wealth behind them. And when you say struggling to launch, I I what came to mind was no struggle, no story.
Mm. So say a little bit more about that because that
Well,
strikes a chord.
so I executive producer for storytellingschool.com, and in our world of storytelling, kind of the center of a story is the struggle. It's the third
Hmm.
S, if you will. It's the struggle. And I love how Traver has actually made 3 buckets in the struggle. So when you're telling the struggle, kind of go through 3 different parts that you had to get through to get to where you have a shift in your perspective, which leads to the lesson that you've learned through
Hmm.
through overcoming the struggle. And very often, Kimberly and I are batting around story ideas for one thing or another. We do this a lot all week long because we need stories at various things that we're doing. Hey, well, how
Hmm.
about this story? How about that story? Da, da, da. And she'll say, "There's no struggle, hence no story."
Right.
So So when you say they're struggling to launch, to me, that's awesome, because in that struggle will come a story later. They'll be able to talk about that struggle. I think that's different than you saying they fail to launch. That's a different thing to me.
Got it. So let me talk about that a little bit, because that I'm getting that, and I'm totally hearing what you're saying. When I'm talking about struggling to launch, most of the time it's an avoidance of the struggle to go out and survive.
So it's resistance.
That might be another way to put it. But it's like, I mean, even yesterday, almost 21-year-old young man is literally, he's still living at home, conflict with father, hasn't spoken to the dad more than any, like, hi, good morning, good night, those kind of things. He essentially hangs out in the basement. And it's like, I asked him, I said, can you go out and support yourself? And he essentially said, no. Could you go out and get an apartment right now if you had to? No. Do you know how to do that? No. Do you, all the way up to, another man yesterday, 28, who is going, I don't know what I want to do in life. And there's a place in here. Part of what I think is happening is there's a level of a couple of things. On one level, there's actually a level of laziness.
Hell yeah.
On another level, there's a fear of not being perfect.
Okay.
And in other words, what I mean is that there's this notion of, I'm supposed to, at 28, be able to, make 10 to 100,000 or 150,000 a year. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do that. And if I go out, I have to be perfect at what I do. And since I'm not going to do anything. There's also an underlying fear of being judged, and of, well, I'm 21, I'm 23, I'm 28, and I don't, I'm bussing tables. And there's some underneath fear, I think, of being judged. And a part of what I'm talking about with them is literally just doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd actually really love your response and input to this piece. And
I can opine for hours about this.
Okay, let me get one more piece in here, because, and both of us have talked about some martial arts in the past, and the same way with horses. And it's like, one of the things that virtually every instructor that I've ever had, whether it be with horses or whether it be with martial arts, is there's all kinds of techniques that you can learn. And sometimes you're not quick enough to do them. Sometimes you're not practiced enough. But if you're in the middle of something, even if you're with somebody who's a much better at any particular martial arts than you or than me, it's like, I just have to do something. I can't just freeze. I can't just not do something. And it might not be the most perfect thing. It might not be, if someone's watching from the outside, it might not be the smoothest of technique, or it might be, if a horse is like acting up or something, it's like I might not know exactly what to do, but I need to do something. And um, or one of the failures to launch, or struggling to launch, whichever way you want to put it, and I really do get what you're talking about around the struggle, is that, where's the piece in there where you're actually willing to just do something and struggle at it? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, my man?
Um, I have several. One started on the freezing part. Um, that was a little bit of what my TED talk was about. People can find, just look up Mark Sylvester TEDx Fargo, and they can watch my talk. But I talked about being paralyzed on the perch of a big opportunity,
Mm,
which is what we're talking about, right? I'm
hmm.
paralyzed on the perch. I like that. Like there's this, or paralyzed on the precipice. Like there's this big opportunity. I know it's big. It's life altering. That's the size I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So leaving the house with no safety net is that such an opportunity. And
Absolutely.
I have a prescription, I think, for I looked backwards and reverse engineered how I've solved every one of those, and I did the same 5 things every single time, and
Mm,
that's how I've managed to get through life, right? So
hmm.
I'm not going to go into that. I'll park it. Let people go look at that. Last night we had a rehearsal. We're opening for our improv team. The ladies version is opening for a LA female comic tonight. It's Women's History Month, and so the local theater has this comic. We've been asked to do a 45-minute set. At rehearsal last night, we're throwing some new games at the ladies to play that can be really
Hmm.
fun in front of a crowd. And one of them just stopped in the middle and she says, I have nothing. I don't know what to say. I have no idea. Several of the people we had, the other ladies who were watching the scene, thought that was part of the scene. That would have been a perfect thing for her character to say. But she was honestly stopping, looking at Kimberly, going, I have nothing. Kimberly says, you could say anything. Whatever you say is true and honest. Say, but I don't know. Doesn't matter what you say. Say anything. Just don't
Yes.
freeze. And it gets back, that right there gets back to something that's been a recurrent theme over our coming up on 75 shows, is that you don't trust yourself.
Ah,
You don't trust your ability. You don't trust ability to make money. You don't trust your ability to do it with some level of sophistication. You don't trust your skill set. You don't trust all those things. So I can't take a step because I don't trust that I can take the second step.
mm.
I don't trust myself. What do you think of that? And I have a lot. I've been taking notes of all the things you've said, but just with that.
That I think is unbelievably powerful, and it is. It drops right into, and I think it's like one of two pieces. One is I don't trust myself to take the step and to take the second step, and the other is, am I humble enough to go out and drive a truck, to go out and drive a school bus, to go
That's
out
a
and
different. That's different.
okay,
I think we're talking about conscious incompetence.
in what way?
I know I don't know how to do any of those things. I
Ah,
know I don't know how to drive her. I know I don't know how to take a menial job. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. But and I'm aware that I'm not unconsciously incompetent. That though that may be the case, I think they're conscious enough that that scares them. Their incompetence scares them. My incompetence to forget supporting anyone else. I need to feed my face. And to that, I was very fortunate, though I'm not religious, but I was in the Jesus Freak movement when I was 16. It was a
Mhm.
Google it. It was a thing here in Southern California for sure. It was probably elsewhere as well, but it was
Yeah.
big. And I remember Piper telling us, it's funny, his name was Piper, like the Pied Piper, and it's like we
Mhm.
all followed him everywhere. He said, does God make sure the birds have enough to eat?
Mm.
Yeah, he does. So why would he neglect you?
Right.
And I learned that young enough that I'll eat and I'll have a place to sleep. And that was why I became a chef, because I knew I could eat in the restaurant and I could sleep in the storeroom. And I did that more than once.
So what allowed, so there is that piece of trusting yourself that you could do something. What allowed you to be able to do that and go in and learn how to do that? Because a quote from the 21-year-old young man I was working with yesterday was, I'm afraid to get a new job because I will have to learn it.
Huh.
And
Hey, Keith Witt's TED Talk. Don't be a dick. Don't be a pussy. That's what I'd say. Sorry, be harsh, but hey, there's the first day of everything. There is a first day of everything in your life.
yes,
And guess what? That's an opportunity to train. I lean into an opportunity to train. That might just be me. Everybody else is don't be afraid of the first day of something. You can, that's a story you're telling yourself, which we've also talked about, which is not true, right? This is like, what if what if you shifted how you thought about that? Like you are the shift to that dude's story to say, what if you reframed that and said, it's going to be an adventure?
well, that's where the trust piece comes in. People don't trust that they can go through an adventure and come out okay.
Mm.
And the
That's, that's why you have continued employment, Doc.
that's why I have job security. The what I want to do is look at something a little bit deeper in this. What has happened with men and young men that from a societal perspective that their power or their willingness to risk has been undermined.
I'm gonna. I would love to do a generational study of that, because I'm gonna I'm gonna suggest, and I would love to get a sociologist to back me up on this. I believe we're experiencing a generational shift, and
Okay.
that
What are
this
you saying with that?
well, so for instance, I love watching Yellowstone, and I love watching 1923 and 1883.
Hmm.
And what was the same in all of those? The kids all started work young. The kids were tasked with responsibility young. The kids were tasked with hard, shitty jobs young, mucking stalls, doing the shit work, the grunt work. They had to do it. Whereas we don't live that life anymore, right? We're not all of us, but I think just conceptually, I'm thinking of my grandsons, you know, it's, you got to pay me to do work, mom. You gotta,
Mhm,
right? You know,
mhm.
I'm gonna take out the trash that the help can do. The you know, the woman who cleans the house or the crew that comes in to clean. I don't have to do any of that. I don't have to clean toilets. I don't have to muck the stalls, metaphorically. They don't do any of that stuff. And again, it's generational. I don't feel like I'm that old, even though I'm gonna be 70 this year. I do not feel that. We've talked about that.
Mhm,
When I was 12, I wanted money for something, forget what it was. And my mom said, great, get a job, flat
mhm.
out, go get a job. And I was like, I'm 12. I'm 12, you know? So, okay, if you want money, figure out how to make money. Okay. So, and I did, and I have, right? So, and hence the struggle, you know, it's right. What is Ben Franklin said, necessity is the mother of invention. I don't think there's been the necessity to have to feed yourself, have to house yourself, have to clothe yourself because you've gotten everything from your parents. This generation right now, the parents are making sure the Gen Xers and the millennials, the kid has everything. So there's no struggle for those
At
kids.
least that I think that's true, at least for a large part of our society. What's striking me with what you're talking about, Mark, is the kids do not have to. There's no place in in the family system at in many families for the kids to help the family survive.
Correct. In
And
now, our touch points are with, you know, I'm going to say white privileged. I live in fucking Montecito, right? I don't live in the South. This may, or in impoverished communities. So this may not strike. So this is sweeping generalization for sure. Just want to say that.
well, and actually we were going to go to the same place at the same time here because that's the other piece that's happening is that the divide between
Right. The wealth gap. Yeah.
the and the layers of wealth and the layers of privilege and the layers of um, having to work and the
Which is
layers.
exacerbated by the addiction to social media of these
Ooh,
middle-aged kids who see, oh, they have it and I don't. Being able to see wealth and privilege and success and putting the best face on stuff is, that's what they're scrolling through all the time. When we did a show, oh, 5 or 6 years ago now, Patrick and I, and he cited a survey that said 70% of the millennials surveyed at the time, this is when they're in high school, what did they want to be? The answer was famous.
really?
When asked, what were you going to do to become famous? They didn't understand the question. I'm going to be famous. I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to be
Just
famous.
because I'm alive
And,
and I'm
and this
cool.
was a core belief. That's different. You and I didn't have that. And I think our kids are Gen Xers now. They're, you know, 50, 40 to 50 years old.
Hmm.
And they saw our struggle and they want to make sure their kids don't struggle like they did,
Hmm.
right? So they're going to make sure their kids have everything to the point of overgiving, which is so the pendulum has swung, and they can, right? They have the means to do that,
Do
and
you? Oh, I'm sorry.
so
Go ahead.
uh, makes me want to go get a sociology degree right now at the ripe old age of 69, to better understand it, because I think we're onto something here.
How much do you, what is your take on how social media has affected growth and maturity in the children? Because, and one of the things that is interesting is that social media does cross many, many lines that I mean, somebody that lives in a family that makes 20 grand a year, they have iPhones,
Mhm.
or some of them do, not all of them.
Mid-Saharan Africa has phones.
Yeah.
So
So
that's, yeah.
yeah. What is your take on the influence of social media? And I have a hit on this, but well, let me share my hit. My hit is instant gratification.
100%.
And that the idea of, working 10 hours and making X number of dollars per hour to be able to go buy X, Y, and Z
Mhm.
that's not part of that.
Mm-mm. Hey, Dad, just put it on my Amazon. You can order it. Dad, and it can be here tomorrow. Really? You got to save money. Oh, come on, Dad. Don't be like that. I know. Yeah, you got to make me, I've watched those conversations. I've heard them with
Mm.
my son talking about that. That's so you're 100% right. That horse left the barn 12 years ago.
Mm.
That one's gone. So again, let's go back to the mythical sociology professor. I would love someone who's just gotten out of school who has the benefit of studying that impact and I would love to hear an opinion of what the mitigation is, because people try to mitigate screen time. They do. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people are doing about that, but and I clearly don't have an answer to that.
Well, I have somewhat of an answer. Because we work with a lot of families, and the two things that I see that shift in a positive way is very limited time on the screen and a and substantial time on being able to be outside in nature.
Right.
Those are the two things that mitigate and that bring us back to who we are. And even as adults, this is an interesting thing, and Mike Kimberly and I have talked about this, is the people who, like in our group of friends, the vast majority of those people have spent a huge amount of time in nature in one way or the other. Sometimes they grew up there, sometimes they've purposely put themselves there, sometimes they've purposely gone on a 30-day adventure where they had to get their own food. Sometimes had done huge amounts of backpacking. Sometimes they've, climbed, they've, those kinds of things. And even now, I mean, even as not yesterday, but the day before, there was a lot of stuff that I got hit with. And it was like, where did I need to go to settle? And I needed to go outside.
Mm.
I needed to go feed my horses. I needed literally to go clean up manure. I needed to breathe in the nature, the air, and be in that milieu, for lack of better words, to be able to settle and to be able to come into contact in a way that I and that I couldn't do sitting in front of a computer, that I couldn't do, quote, relaxing in front of the TV, or even that I couldn't do sitting and reading. It was like I needed to be in that environment.
I have a question for you. When I was thinking how I don't do that enough, and you're 100% right. I don't do that enough. And I was just thinking, after this call, I'm going to go walk to the beach.
Absolutely.
And then in that walk, what is it that I get? So all the things that you were saying, and one of the things, because I'm going to walk to the ocean, I'm going to stand at the ocean, and something that happens to me every time I'm at the ocean is the universe poignantly points out what a speck of dust I am. I'm a miniature piece of sand. I'm only
Right.
slightly larger than a piece of sand compared to
Absolutely.
the universe. And
Yes.
so the universe, if I'm listening, it's like, get over yourself, dude. You're
Mhm.
you're just part of this whole thing, right? I got you. I got your back, but get over yourself. Whereas if I'm sitting in front of the computer, I control everything. I control what I do. I control my windows. I'm in control. My little captain's office here, I am in control. I walk out
Totally.
at the ocean, I am not in control. You think that's part of it?
Well, I think that's part of it. So let's talk about that piece a little bit. And what you're actually talking about, this is like so cool that you brought this up. This is actually another client who's 24. And I actually had a Zoom session with him, so talk about computers. And he literally said exactly what you said. I'm in control. It's fun. I know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
I can pull up a movie, or I can do this, or I can do that. And this young man is unbelievably athletic. He's actually quite fit. And I asked him, I so what happens if you go outside? He goes, I don't know what to do. And so he had some assignments to literally, and he has a dog that he loves, to literally do between that session and our next upcoming session, to hike at least 3 different times
Huh?
in a 2-week period. And what was interesting was I got a text from him saying, on my hike, I decided to apply for this particular job. 2 days later, he got the job
There you go.
as a mental health technician at a place called Fort Logan. He's getting his bachelor's degree in psychology. But it's like the shift that happens when we're outside and we find out where we actually belong. Because, and it's an interesting thing, when you're on the beach, which, by the way, the beaches there are gorgeous, is it allows us, even though we're a speck in the universe, it allows us to feel where we belong.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
Because as much technology as there, it's wonderful. And I mean, you and I are what, 1,500 miles apart, and we can talk in real time and see each other in real time, like right now. So that's fabulous. And at the same time, it's still isolating. There's still a level of isolation and separation in this process.
Mhm.
And as I'm thinking about it, every one of the men, and I hadn't quite put this together this way. And there's 5 young men from there's between 20 and 31 that I'm talking about here. All of them are isolated. All of them, I, it's like I need more friends. I don't know where to go to. And let me think. All of them are actually single too, which is another interesting piece. Is, I don't know where to go to meet a woman. I don't know. And even if I did, I don't know where I
So
would
first off,
take her. I mean, all those
you
things.
can't meet them at work anymore, right? That's out.
Yeah.
We're not going to bars to meet them. That's a bad choice, right? You can meet them in whatever hobby you have. So if you don't have a hobby, look at that, the hobby that gets you out. I don't care what it is, have a hobby that gets you out. But I'm gonna put a plug in for go find an improv class.
Mm,
Improv in our Carpinteria Improv, more than half the people would self-identify as being introverts,
mm,
except when they come on stage. And we are their once a week outlet where they can be crazy, get out of their heads, stop thinking, not just be in community. They'll all say, "You're my circle of friends now. Until I found you, I
right.
did not have that." And we have people dating one another, meeting one another. It's a safe space, all that good stuff. And there's improv everywhere. So I would have your 5 guys. There's 4 or
That's
5 schools in Denver. And
mhm.
in your neck of the woods, there's one in Boulder. They're all over the place. Go take it, do that.
Well, and to put a plug in, and I've not gone to any of those schools. What I have done is come to 3 events that you and Kimberly have hosted, and they all have had a huge element of improv in them. It is so fun. It drops into depth
Mhm,
and it's funny.
mhm,
The laughter that comes out of that
mhm,
and the playfulness and the
mhm,
creativity is amazing. It
mhm.
it actually creates an aliveness.
Yeah, 100% to 800%, right? It is the one of the things I don't have, I don't have a rear view mirror, but when I was 20, had I one night a week gone to martial arts, one night a week gone to improv, and every night before I went to bed meditated, I may have had less struggles. That didn't happen, but
Mm,
anybody who's listening now can go do those 3 things. Go do them today. Get on the
absolutely.
Google and find that for yourself, because I'll tell anybody who wants to listen, who's a young person, please go do that. And you
Yes.
send me a thank you note and a box of dark chocolate.
If you're gonna send it to me, send milk chocolate.
Yeah, there you go.
So this is so weird because this is so not where we started.
Never,
Um,
it never is.
it never is. It's sort of like improv. Um, I would love, and I don't know enough to be able to teach or lead this. But I would love to do a class, an improv class called Improv in the Woods, where literally, and I know that part of this would be weather dependent, but literally doing improv outside.
Sure.
That would be like so friggin' cool.
On that note, my friend, let's let our listeners savor all the delicious little bits we served up today. And I'd love them to take action on any one of the things. One, if you are afraid to launch, go listen to my TED Talk. That
Mhm.
might be a thing to do. I have a little sticker on my computer that just says one next action.
Yes.
What is the one next thing you're going to do? Commit to doing that, commit to taking a second step. And you can't help but we have just the tiniest little bit of momentum, just the tiniest little bit.
Totally.
You don't need a lot, and then pretty soon it gets more and more. Take this as an opportunity to train.
And I would yes and that, and the yes is, and is do something and do something different than what you're doing.
Ah, there you go. My
Thank you,
friend, I
sir.
love you.
Love you too so much.